Hello everyone and welcome. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so you can see my face. So hello all, my name is Michelle Rose and I am very excited that you have joined me here on this choir rehearsal. So if you are not expecting to be in a virtual choir rehearsal, then I don't know how you ended up here, but I'm glad you're here anyway. Stick around. But anyway, today we are going to actually go through a rehearsal. So if you have not done so already, please go ahead and download the music. So it is just I Love My Love it's by Holst. And it is in the public domain. That is why you are allowed to just freely download it. I promise I am not breaking copyright. So I will put that link in the chat if you need it. It's just at bit.ly/I Love My Love Choir. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you sing out loud. So if you don't have it perfect, that's totally fine. All right, I am going to go back to screen sharing. And so just so you're aware, this session is being recorded, and I'm also recording my actual screen. So the recording that you're going to get after this will show you exactly where I'm clicking kind of behind the scenes on Zoom, because you can't always see that through screen share on Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Maybe. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so I always start with, and if you came yesterday, you're going to get this spiel again, but I think it's very important. I always start with some sort of countdown and some sort of while you wait, here's what you can do. So that way students are not just coming in and staring at each other, because I don't know about you, but my least favorite thing in the whole world, well, one of them, is coming into a Zoom meeting and just awkwardly staring at people, and no one's talking in the chat and no one's talking out loud, and we're all just kind of like, all right, I am very aware of myself in my box, and then I'm very aware that everyone is also there, but they're not looking at you, they're looking at them, and it's just uncomfy, right? And so honestly, when I know that I'm going to be in a situation of a meeting like that, what I do is I just come in 2 or 3 minutes late, because I just avoid all that awkward staring. I don't want to come in early and just sit awkwardly. So you want to make sure students have something to do, and they will know clearly when rehearsal will start, so they can, use the restroom, grab a snack, grab water, grab a pencil. Tell my students, music, pencil, and they always do the music pencil dance because they can't come without the music and pencil. So that is kind of just the beginnings of that. And then I just wanted to show you real quick the way that I have this timer here in Google Slides is, and I'm just going to open the chat in the other screen just in case. What I do is I just go to Insert and then Video, and then however long you want your timer to be. So if you wanted a 15-minute timer, a bunch of options will come up. For the start of class, sometimes I'll play a timer with music, sometimes not. I am sharing my computer sound, so that's why it came through so clearly on your end. And I was not on mic because my favorite human, Wesley, is next to me, and he is going to be helping us out tonight with the accompaniment, and he is still practicing, but I could do all that I wanted to do by sharing computer sound. So if you are not familiar, you will see in the recording that the share computer sound is in the bottom left when you go to share something. So you'll just want to make sure that is clicked so students can hear if there is sound. All right. I'm going to go back to presenting. Okay, can you share computer audio and screen share at the same time? Yes, you can. You just need to check the box at the very bottom left. It's kind of hidden when you press screen share. And so when you see this recording, just go back to this beginning part, and I promise you, even though you can't see it here, it will be in the recording, the bottom left. And then how can we see you and your screen share at the same time? I have it so, hold on. Um, it is set up so you can. I think you should be able to still see me no matter what. Um, you should still be able to see the host no matter what, as long as they keep their video on. So if you turn your video off, then, you know, and if everyone's video is off, then you won't see anyone's names or anything like that. But I have a second monitor. That's why it looks like I'm looking over to the side right now. And so I can see kind of a little bit of everyone who is here. And so that is kind of how I keep track of my students. So you can click and drag and make the screen big so you can see lots of students at once. So I'll actually show you on here. So this is the grid view here, and then if you just click and drag, you can see everyone. And then I move this to my second monitor if I am doing some sort of teaching with screen share. I mostly do that with my general music classes, but there is on occasion where I will screen share something and want to see my students at the same time. So it does look a little funny because, you know, suddenly I'm looking over to the side, but it is all for the good of making sure that students are engaged. All right, so just to get formalities out of the way, if you did not know who I am Michelle Rose, and I am a full-time online music teacher. This is my 4th year teaching online. So I was doing this before COVID started. I teach middle school and high school general music. I also direct the extracurricular virtual band / orchestra and choir. I also guest teach for elementary, so if you missed yesterday's elementary session, it is currently uploading. It's taking forever to upload to YouTube, but it should be there tonight if you're interested. And then I'm also the author of Teaching Music Online, a comprehensive guide for K-12 music educators, which I should have named something shorter because it's a mouthful to say. But regardless, this session and all of the PD sessions this week are in celebration of my launch. And you may be thinking, wait, it's been out for like 2 to 3 weeks. And yes, it launched during the week that I was going back to school. So it was a little bit chaotic. It is even for me right now. So, you know, life. It just is what it is. So thank you for joining me and celebrating this a little later. If you do want to connect with me, I mostly am on Instagram at _musical_rose. And if you feel like you learned something tonight, I'd love for you to tag me. And it's okay if you take a funny picture of my face. I know sometimes when I'm in webinars, I take like 80 pictures of the person because they're like making weird faces while I'm trying to, they're like, yes, I'm learning from them. And I promise their face doesn't look like this. I just can't time it right. But don't worry about that. I would love to see anything. You can also email me, although will admit I am super behind on my emails, both professionally and personally. But I am trying to get back to everyone as I can, and that's Michelle at themusicalrose.com. But your fastest way to reach me is through Instagram DM these days. I am a little bit behind. Oh, and I just realized I always forget to put on these captions. So one thing that I really like about Google Slides is that it has the option for captions, and I really need to make a note for myself because I always kind of forget this, but it is very accurate for the most part. And so if you just are in present mode, if you click on CC, it will pop up and it's very accurate and easy. I don't know why we don't have this built into Zoom yet. I'm hoping that it will be at some point, but this is kind of my workaround for now. Okay, so today, here's what we're gonna do. One, we're gonna talk about how I prep for sectionals and rehearsals. 2, we are going to do an alto sectional. So even if you don't sing alto, that's okay. You can just sing in your voice range or do your best. And then 3, we are going to do a full choir rehearsal. Now, before we get into this, I just want to preface this by saying that my main jam is band. Okay, so I was a high school band director before I am teaching at my current job. And I would consider myself fairly competent in terms of like elementary choir, but since I started this choir at my school, I started taking voice lessons, and I've definitely grown as a choir director, and I'm inching toward calling myself, you know, a full-on choir person, even though my voice teacher is like, but you are, it's fine. But just be gentle with me. I know some of you in here are like super fantastic, mind-blowing choir directors. So if I say something, adapt it to your program, okay? Whatever you need to do. But I just want to say that, just got to put it out there. Okay. So now, my virtual choir, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from and what I have to work with, and I promise you it is not a full, robust program that's happening 5 days a week, that has, you know, an advanced choir and a treble choir and a tenor and bass choir. It is all students who would like to join in grades 6 through 12. It is completely extracurricular, so students do this of their own free will. They are not graded. So yes, my students come to virtual ensemble. They're not graded. They turn in assignments still. They show up every week for rehearsal. They have one 30-minute sectional per week and then one 30-minute full choir rehearsal per week. And why do I do this? Well, when I first started virtual ensemble, I had virtual band slash orchestra, 30 minutes a week, and then virtual choir, full choir, 30 minutes a week. And I found that my choir students, one, I had a lot more beginners, and two, they were not learning the music on their own like my band students were. And so how do I fix this? And so the sectional was really the biggest thing that made a difference. So if you're not doing any kind of regular sectionals and you have choir, highly recommend, highly recommend. I also, I put smart music or Soundtrap. I kind of gone back and forth between either, but you need something to make sure your students are submitting each week, whether, I mean, it could even be Flipgrid, which is free. So just something, but just so you know, those are the tools that I use. And so yes, my students actually like being part of a virtual ensemble. So I have gotten this question kind of frequently. Like a lot of people are like, wait a second, so your kids aren't graded. This is after classes, after school, and your students actually like it. And yes, it is possible for kids to like it. I'm not just making that up. This is from a survey that I took recently. And so the reason why I show you this, and lots of people this, is because virtual education, online music is different, not less. Okay, so there are pros and cons to both. And your students can love this experience online, I promise you. The other thing to know though is that your students are not only in it for the music. I know as music teachers, like that pains us a little bit, right? Like we want kids to be in it for the music. And I'm wearing a shirt by Franklin Willis that says more than a music teacher. And this year especially, we are more than just teaching music, right? We are bringing kids together in community. So my kids love choir because they learn things, but they also love choir because they have friends, right? And they fit in. And we do a virtual lunch bunch every week where, you know, kids can't come to my room during lunch and hang out, but they can come to my virtual room. So we hang out and eat lunch and socialize. We do like bring your pet to sectional day, which is one of my favorites, where it's just 1 to 2 minutes in the beginning of sectionals. And okay, all right, everyone hold up their pet. And it's like just a minute. But those are the moments that your students also need this semester in terms of just feeling this community, this togetherness, even beyond the music. So yes, my students feel like they're learning. So you can see here that they feel like they are actually learning. Like that last student said that they learned some new techniques with my voice. I was like, hey, I can teach something choir related, but also the other kids. It was fun to be with other kids. And so don't forget to make things fun this semester, even if you have to fake it a little bit. No one's really having fun, you know, outside of school right now. Everything feels like it's on fire. But when you get into virtual rehearsal with your students, don't forget to have fun with them. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now and let's dig in. All right, so sectional prep. Here's what I did to prepare for this PD session, actually. So for sectionals, every week I will pick a chunk of music if we're working, and so we usually work on like 2 to 3 pieces. So depending on the week, I'll usually pick 1 or 2. And then I will look at that section, make notes, I will typically sing through it, and I will see what I have trouble with, because if I'm having trouble with it, then that means my students are too. And I kind of have an advantage where I'm still kind of learning to sing in some ways. So, that helps me learn alongside my students. And so, yes, I do play through every single part every week, just to make sure I can sing it and help them too. And so this is all before that first rehearsal, so I haven't heard them yet. Then after the first rehearsal, I'll listen to student recordings, so either submitted through Soundtrap or submitted through Smart Music. And I will usually listen to most of them. Maybe I won't listen to every single one. It depends on how much time I have every week. So if you are working 24/7, stop, because you're going to burn yourself out. You do not have to do everything perfectly, I promise. Your students can still have a good musical experience. And generally, when I listen to 5 kids, the other 10 kids are also having the same issues. Kids are pretty predictable in terms of, the mistakes they make, because, we also made them too when we were, in the high school musical or in choir in college or whatever. And so if there's anything that is really, really standing out, I will give feedback to those one-offs. Okay, so now this is the participatory part. So if you have your music, great. If you don't have your music, you can go to bit.ly/ILoveMyLoveChoir. And so I want you to tell me, look at the alto whine, measures 1 through 15. And I am going to, don't type it into the chat yet. I'm going to give you a minute of think time demonstrating. Okay, so again, how you do that. Insert video, 1 minute timer. And then you can do this first one here. I like it because it's a silent one. Nice and easy. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute, and this is how I ensure that I also give my students the right think time, because think time is awkward in person, and virtually it's even more awkward. So go ahead and take a look and find one thing that you think the altos would find challenging or might need extra time rehearsing. And then after the minute goes off, you are going to type it into the chat. And I'm going to stop talking because otherwise I'll talk over the entire think time. And if you found one, you can find another. As I tell my students, there's always more to do. You have your answer. You can go ahead and start typing into the chat, but don't press enter until the timer goes off. Okay. All right, so yeah, that timer is a little bit aggressive when it goes off, but all right, so go ahead and type into the chat. And yes, really, yes, I know you're all brilliant choir directors and you know in your heads, but tell me one thing that you think the altos might find challenging. All right, perfect. All right, so see, I just would like to point out that without hearing your students or without hearing anyone singing this, you already have an idea of what students are going to need. So trust your musicianship, all right? You know what your students are going to need in terms of rehearsing and all of that already, even without hearing them. And so you will hear them eventually, right? But you already can anticipate a lot of the things that they will need. So trust yourself to know that students know what they need. Okay, now full choir prep. Awesome. And you all got probably more than I even picked out. So wonderful, wonderful. All right, full choir prep, same thing, pick a chunk. But this time, instead of just looking at one part, I'm looking at items that affect the entire group. So I'm not necessarily going to be rehearsing pitches because they can't hear each other and they can't hear how that works together. That's not to say that I don't ever put these parts together for them to hear how they blend. But generally, I don't focus on that in full choir rehearsal. What I focus on are rhythms, words, dynamics, things that the whole group is doing together. So that way, everyone is engaged. So no more, all right, sopranos, we're going to work on this for 20 minutes, and your tenors and basses are just kind of like, all right, so I'm just hanging out. That is the great thing about online teaching, is that you can possibly eliminate some of that. After the first rehearsal, I listen to student recordings, and I put these recordings together every 2 weeks or so via GarageBand. It takes me less than an hour. Smart Music has made it really easy now, where you can easily download student recordings. If they're going to put things right into Soundtrap, it can kind of already be done for you. I'm not going to go too far into how to do this, but my students do hear what they sound like together about every 2 weeks or so. And I found that this is the important part. Students get really excited when they hear what they sound like together. So don't wait to the end of the semester to put together the full choir, because students want to hear what they sound like together. And it doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, the great thing about doing this in rehearsals is that I can just grab parts and put them together. So if kids are singing wrong rhythms, then they will hear that, go, ooh, that's not good. But that's okay. Then I can ask my students, we're going to listen, tell me what's good, what do we need to improve? And so students, whenever I play for the first time all together, even if it's not the best, most beautiful thing, they get really excited because they finally understand they're contributing to a whole group. Okay. So now let's, so I was gonna have you do the same thing with the full group, but for time's sake, we're gonna go on for now. And now I would like to welcome my fabulous accompanist, favorite human, Wesley. Woo! So I was too nervous to accompany myself. That's what I usually do in rehearsals, but I was a little bit too nervous doing it through a webinar. So yes, I did marry an accompanist, and so we have been playing together since college. Oh, look at us, we're little babies at Elon. So this is just a joy. And so I didn't look at you. Well, I was trying to do something good and it's not working, but Wesley has been an angel this entire time, and people keep asking me, how did you write a book during pandemic? And truly, it is because I have gotten so much help from him. So, all right, just had to do a little brag and appreciation post, real life webinar, shout out. Okay, I see a question. Do you have rehearsal tracks in Smart Music? Do you pick lit that is already in the library, or do you upload pieces? So I will, depending on the piece, if it's not in there, and if it's in, like it's a piece like this where it's in public domain, or if you pay for the mechanical license, I think it is, don't quote me on that, I'm not a copyright lawyer, check the NAFME website, but you can, then I just put in to Sibelius and then a music XML file, then upload it to Smart Music. So that's what I've done in the past. It is easier to just choose a piece that is in Smart Music, although the choir rep is definitely much more limited. But they added some songs by Pink Zebra, which I was really excited about. So that is hopefully a little bit helpful. All right, so we are gonna do an alto sectional. And so this is really what I do with my kids, so they will see this on the board and they know what all these mean. We're going to do something just for fun first. And so yes, this is, and actually I can turn back this way while we do our just for fun. So yes, please actually participate. I am going to make you do something. I am not an icebreaker person at all, so I don't like icebreakers really. But I have found a few things that are still kind of fun, even for an icebreaker miser like myself. So our just for fun today, and these are things that you can do with your students too. My students love playing Would You Rather. So this is speed Would You Rather, because I feel like sometimes in full group, you know, you have students and they take a long time to answer, and then lots of students have opinions or whatever. So this is speed Would You Rather. And so what I'm going to do is put you into breakout rooms in groups of 2, and you are going to have 1 minute to tell me, would you rather, during a performance, would you rather your accompanist falls asleep or your audience falls asleep. So when you get into your breakout room, you are either going to say or type. I give students the option. Your name, where you're joining from, and your answer, okay? So would you rather your accompanist fall asleep or your audience fall asleep? So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. You will be able to see this in the recording, how I do this. And so, where are the breakout rooms? Here we go. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms of 2. You'll be randomly assigned to someone else, and of course this is in the way. Okay, and then you just want to make sure in options that breakout rooms close automatically after 1 minute, then all students will come back, so you don't have to wait, okay? So here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Oh no.
What?
Oops. Oh, sorry, I did not do those breakout rooms correctly. All right, so that is what happens when you put 33 people into 2 rooms and not 32 people into 17 rooms, which will put you in 1 to 2 per person. Okay, so this is what happens when you teach virtually. Things like this happen all the time. So this is real life, right? All right, so going to put you in a breakout room for real now with 1 other person and not 17 people in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I think that worked.
Are you in a rehearsal?
No, I'm in the main room.
Can anyone hear you?
Yes. Well, you can, and whoever's watching the recording can.
Oh. What is this?
All right. Okay, so this is speed would you rather. Okay, here we go. Second one. So you're gonna be in with a different person. Second would you rather. And you'll have to turn your mics back off because they will automatically come back. Okay, would you rather listen to the Pitch Perfect soundtrack or a pentatonic soundtrack for 15 hours straight? Same thing. You're gonna have different breakout rooms this time, hopefully, if I do it correctly. All right, so you just have to click on recreate the rooms and you'll see this when I have the recording. Okay, so would you rather listen to a Pitch Perfect soundtrack or a pentatonic soundtrack for 15 hours straight? Same thing, name, where you're joining from, your answer. 1 minute, here we go. Okay, I think that worked. Okay, welcome back. So again, that's speed would you rather. And so that can take 2 minutes of time at the beginning of class. It's something fun for your kids to do. And it's, not a painful icebreaker because it doesn't take a super long time. So hope you had a little bit of fun, or maybe it was just cringy. That's fine too. All right, wait. Favorite team of Wesley, where'd you go? We're gonna start the sectional for realsies now. Okay, so during this time, I usually stop sharing so students can just see me, and I tell them, okay, you're going to click on speaker view so that I appear to be big on your screen. So that way students can see me. So I am going to actually invite you to go ahead and go. Usually I'm sitting here, I have a different setup, but we're gonna make it work. So I'm going to invite you to stand up very carefully, especially if you have headphones on and you're attached, and I will invite you to turn on your cameras. I do not ever force a student to turn on their cameras, but when I invite students to turn on their cameras, most of them do. All right, we are gonna start with a physical warm-up. So I know I need this after a long day too. So go ahead and start with rolling your shoulders back. And in the opposite direction. And then go ahead and roll your neck in one direction. I can feel all that tension. And the opposite direction. And then go ahead and reach up. And reach over to the side. And my students love doing this because they feel like they're in an exercise video with me. And reach back up. And reach over to the other side. And then go ahead and touch your toes and hang like a rag doll. And you always want to make sure you're covered before you go down because it's on camera. And then roll up slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae. And I always tell my students, okay, flip your hair with me if you need to. You always do. All right, so we are going to start out with yaw vocal size. And so these are all warm-ups that my students are pretty familiar with. And so all we're going to do is slide from 5 to 1 on yaw. So can you hear me? So yaw. So go ahead and do it with me. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and yaw. 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 So since we're in an also sectional, we'll stop there. All right, and then next we're gonna do to ah. And so this is something that I do regularly, but there's also a closed mouth section in here that we're gonna take a look at. So to ah, sol, fa, mi, re, do. So as we go down, you're gonna start with and open up to ah. All right, here we go. Let's try it together. All right, here we go. 1. I'm not used to having accompaniment, so I'm like, this is strange. Okay, here we go. Ready? And look at yourself in the camera. Are you opening up your mouth? OEO, do, so, do. We have lots of fourths coming up soon. So OEO, like the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, OEO. So, and by the way, I was not saying open up your mouth more to any of you, but that's just generally what I say to my students. So it's a great tool. Tell your students, find yourself and take a look at yourself. Are you opening your mouth? Okay, so sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Okay, here we go. OEO. Do, so, do. Ready? Yep. Okay, here we go. Do down to sol and do. So the fourth. Yep. OEO. Okay, here we go. Ready? And no. Wait. Yeah. Let's start. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, here we go. Not used to having an accompanist. I know I said that already, but let's try it again. Here we go. Ready? And O-E-O. there we go. Here we go, ready, and oh, we oh, oh, we oh, oh, we oh, oh, we oh, oh, we oh. Okay, that's good. We're good. So, etc., etc. And then the last one, my students love this one. Dental floss is very good for teeth. And I tell my students, sing it nice and proud, tell your family that dental floss is really good for your teeth. And also make sure that they can understand exactly every single word that you say. Because they gotta know, dental floss is very good for teeth. Okay, so do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do.
I understood that one.
Okay, great.
All right.
This one's faster.
Yeah.
Dental floss is very good for teeth. Here we go.
Ready?
1, 2, ready. Dental floss is very good for teeth. 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 All right, and then we do that a couple of times. And all right, so yes, have always an adventure in the Rose household. So thank you for indulging us. And I know that was not perfectly rehearsed, but like I said, you all will be brilliant choir teachers and know exactly what you need to do for your students. So next we are going to go into I Love My Love. So I physically mail copies of music to my students. I know that a lot of publishers have allowed printed copies for various reasons due to COVID. Smart Music has a new option where if you have the premium, you can like have students print their parts. But I find that printers break and students for whatever reason forget to print things out. So I literally just go ahead and mail them physical copies. If your students are coming back to you in person, they can give those back to you. I would say if you're going to give your students music, don't become too attached to it, getting it back just during this time. It's just going to have to be what it is. All right, so we're going to work on measures 1 through 15 today. And so I'm going to go through some basic things. As if you were my students, we'll go through it kind of quickly though. And so we are going to go ahead and listen first. So remember, this is an alto sectional, so I would play it first on piano. I do use a metronome just so they get used to always kind of practicing with a metronome, because it's really even more important as we're online to line up parts. All right, so you want to play the alto part? So go ahead and listen, and you can sing in your head, but I want you to just listen to your part. First, we're going from measures 1 to 15. All right, and so if you have more time with your students, maybe you have them sight read or do intervals or all the different things, but I only have a 30-minute sectional once per week, so I do a lot of rote singing. Feel free to apply whatever works for your choir here. Okay, so let's go ahead and sing that first. First phrase on Lou. So we're going to go from abroad to spring, but we're going to sing it on Lou. So let's try that together. Here we go. 1, 2, oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then if you were my students, I'd have you do that probably at least another time or two, that we are going to go on. And so here is the next part, and here's the tricky part. So before we get into that, I want you to look specifically at measure 6 on the words bedlam. And so we're going to practice that interval on Lu. So go ahead and can you play that interval for us? All right, so try that with me. Here we go. Thinking about your air as you go up. Here we go. Ready? Try that one more time. Ready? And all right, let's add the rest of the measure in. So listen first. This is the whole measure starting on Bedlam. Okay. Oh. And so, yeah, we'll end right on Sweetly, or on Sweet. So let's try that together from bed to sweet. Here we go. On Lu, ready, and. All right, now let's try it from I Heard a Maiden. So, all right, let's listen first and then we will sing it together. So here it is first. Okay, here we go. Let's try it with I Heard a Maiden. 1, 2, 3. And so we would go continue through that. Maybe we would hit that a couple more times. All right. Let's go ahead and just sing the next phrase. On her chains, she rattled her hands, thus replied she. And we will talk about replied in the full choir when we get to that next. So if you'll go ahead and just play the melody for us from her. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you can sing it up the octave or when we get to that G if needed. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and sing it on Lu again. 1, 2, 3. That's at the very bottom of my range. And again, this is just very initial rehearsal when we're just learning these notes. I will hit some more things later, but this next part, so you will notice that it says closed lips, closed lips. And so I want you to listen real quick. I am going to hum 2 times, and I want you to listen and tell me which one is easier to hear or sounds more clear. So you want to give me a D? Okay, so here's hum number 1. And here's hum number 2. So go ahead and put up on your fingers either 1 or 2. Which one do you think sounded better? So here it is again. If you're not on camera, go ahead and tell me in the chat what you think. All right, great. And you can go ahead and put hands down. So that is a way you can engage students real quick, real easily. And if your students don't all have cameras on, don't leave them out. They can still participate in the chat that way. So yes, we are going to be humming, but even though you're humming, the tendency is kind of, you know, when you're humming with your mouth closed, but we want to think of ah, and then our lips are just closed. So thinking about ah when we sing this next part. So, all right, we'll learn the pitches on Lu, and then we'll switch to humming with ah. So here we go. So listen first. Okay, try it on Lu. 1, 2, ready, and. Now try it with your mouth closed, thinking about the shape ah. Just close your lips. Here we go. Let's try that. Same thing with closed lips. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and. probably remind my students to breathe through their mouth and not their nose. Like I I got really excited and forgot to do that. So I would point out my mistake, and then we would do it together, making sure that they're breathing through their mouth, getting a full deep breath, even though their mouth is going to be closed. Open the mouth to breathe, close it. Okay, so now we're gonna do it from the very top with a metronome. So the way that I do this is I am going to share just my computer sound this time. And so I find it important to make sure that I am playing with the metronome with my students so they get used to that. Sometimes with choir music, you can have a little more ebb and flow, but with virtual ensembles, you have to be a lot more precise. And so I just use, if you just type in here, if you just type in metronome into Google, a nice basic metronome will show up. And that is honestly all that I use, nothing fancy. I found that metronome online made my computer run very hot, so this is just your basic metronome. So this will play through on your students and clearly as long as you are sharing their sound, they should still be able to hear you. You hear that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this alto part from the beginning all the way through to measure 15. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Too low for me. Here we go. Close your mouth. Okay, and so when we get to these parts where we need to slow down in smart music, well, in Sibelius, I basically force a retardando or a cellarando or whatever just by making each beat slightly slower and then slightly faster. But that way, students, that's kind of my hack to make sure students are all slowing down at the same rate, speeding up at the same rate. Okay, so that is essentially what I do in a sectional. So that is an alto sectional. So real quick, we are going to take a look at full choir rehearsal. And so so I do anticipate this session is probably going to run till about, let's say 9:10. So we'll probably go about 10 minutes over just to give you an idea of an endpoint, because I had not put an endpoint in the email, but I anticipated around an hour. So same kind of deal. Switching up a couple things based on what I want to work on. I am going to show you my just for fun, but we will skip a lot of these warm-ups just because we've already done them. But here is my just for fun that you can use with students. So this is called Which One Doesn't Belong? And so students can get kind of heated about this because there is no right answer. So this is one of my favorite things to do because especially if sections get on board with each other in full rehearsal, full choir rehearsal, you know, like it's like altos versus the sopranos and the tenors and they all have different answers, or, you know, maybe all your kids have different answers. But it is fun to, and a good brain challenge because a lot of, you know, the standardized testing, there's one right answer. And so, you know, telling students, well, there's more than one right answer. In fact, there's no right answer, but you still have to choose. It's kind of like, whoa, wait a second. All right, so here's the picture, and I'm going to present so you can see that big. And so which one do you think doesn't belong? And so you can tell me in the chat or on the mic. It is up to you. But which one do you think doesn't belong and why? Oh, he hasn't seen this yet. Do you have an opinion? Which one do you think doesn't belong?
Bottom left.
Why?
She's the only one that doesn't have a real microphone or a real instrument.
Mm-hmm. Chickens versus humans. Chef has an air mic. Awesome.
Also, that lettuce looks like it might be going bad.
So, yes, so I'm seeing many of you. The bottom right is the only one with uh, people who look like they might be men. You could also say that, you know, the bottom right has instruments other than a microphone and a guitar. You know, you could say that someone is holding the mic in the top left, or, you know, there are a million things that you can say. Um, okay, so,
Like
oh yeah,
freebirds.
roosters, well, I would say roosters are not humans, but there's no right answer, and so I just found 4 pictures. These are stock photos, so you will be able to keep this. I will give you this session or these slides, so you can actually use this in your class if you want, and I have permission to do so. So these are just stock photos that I found, but it's just kind of fun. And so the thing is, everyone's singing, so it's kind of related, but also just, you know, quick way to start out. All right, so the only one that I want to do differently is Mame Mimo Moo. And so with this, I will come back to my face so you can see me. So this you can do with your students, even though they're not going to be singing, they're not going to be able to hear each other, right, doing this, but you still want their ear to kind of be hearing other parts and for them to be kind of independent in their part. So Mame Mimo Moo, I do this on a chord, and then I have different hand movements that my students do. So yes, actually do them with me. I tell my students all the time, look, you did not join choir so you could look cool on Zoom. You joined choir so we could all look silly together in front of our families. So here we go. Let's do them together. So repeat after me. Ma, me, mo, moo. Again, that's ma, me, mo, moo. Okay, and then you can do it on a chord. You can pick a chord for us. Don't make it too jazzy though. Okay, so here we go, and then you can give the 4 notes. So. Okay, and then so you'll have your students, again, even though they can't hear everyone, it still is good to build their ear that they're hearing other parts and that they're singing their parts. So let's sing that together. So you're gonna sing ma, me, mi, mo, moo. Here we go. Ready? And oh, a little bit slower. So we need ma, me, and then you can do it on different chords if you want. All right, and then my favorite thing to do with students at home. And my students love it too. Say, okay, we're gonna do a siren. And my students, I say, hand motions are optional, but they love to do hand motions with me. And so we're gonna do siren, and it's gonna freak out your family a little bit. They're gonna be like, what, are you in a cult over there in your choir rehearsal? What is happening? But again, these little moments where you can feel super weird and awkward together. I mean, I tell my students all the time, you don't join choir, sound cool in front of your family, join it to be a little bit silly and learn how to sing too. Okay, so here's what the siren sounds like. Okay, yes, actually try it with me. Your family's gonna be like, what is going on? Do it with me, because this is how your students are gonna feel, right? So you are in their spot right now. Here we go, ready, and and so then they laugh a little bit afterwards because people are like peeking in. But again, we're making things fun, right? Okay. Moving on to I Love My Love. Take it out. Our dog is here with us too. His name is Toby, short for Beethoven, because of course. All right, so something that I, would go over potentially. Okay, so we have these springs and sings. Spring, sing. So try that with me. Ready? Spring, seeing. So when we get to that, you're actually going to do that movement to make sure kids are opening up enough while they're holding. And then on bedlam, what I want you to do is actually open your mouth like it's the ma. So bed. Okay, so let's actually just try on bedlam real quick. I know it's like bedlam, but bedlam. I want kids to open up because we're jumping that octave. Okay, you see where that is? So that is measure 6.
When we have the sopranos.
Yep. So here we go. So we're not going to do too much together. You know, that's different. So everyone has bedlam. And so I want you to look at yourself, find yourself, and when we get to the la, open your mouth. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So ready, and. Okay, and so I should preface this by saying we are assuming at this point that everyone has had a sectional this week and knows this part. And so, again, something you can do that affects all kids, that they can see themselves doing and find themselves in there. And now we're going to pretend that we went over a bunch of things. And so here's what we're going to do. We are going to sing from abroad, the beginning to sing. And so every time you are holding out that note, walking, spring, seeing, I want you to pull up a little bit. And when we get to bedlam, okay? So you can either, if you know this, if you know your actual voice part, you can sing it. If you don't, you can just sing the alto part that we learned earlier. It's up to you. I can't hear you. You could sing nothing. You could be shouting curse words at me like, this is terrible. Everything's on fire. I can't hear you. So your choice, your choice. Okay. Here we go. If you're not having a little bit of fun, you know, what are we doing?
You want a metronome?
Yes, let's do it with a metronome. So
72.
okay. Where did I put the metronome? Here it is. Okay, so don't forget to share your computer sound. So I'm just going to share my computer sound, not my screen. You have the option to do that too.
72.
And we will do it at quarter note equals 72. All right, here we go. From the beginning, doing your hand movements, find yourself. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. So again, if you're like, whoa, that was really fast. We went through that really very quickly. Pedagogically, I would go a little slower, and I would know this piece a little better. Honestly, I put this together this weekend, and so I don't know the piece by heart, but that's okay because you will know your choir music that you're going to do. This is not a piece I'm doing, so I was not going to spend a ton of time learning it. All right, okay, it is 9, so I am going to kind of wrap up now. You're done, so thank you. Round of applause for favorite human Wesley for being my accompanist because I was way too nervous to do that all myself. Hope you all had fun in the Rose musical today. And so now let's just wrap up real quick. So this gave you hopefully some general ideas of how to run a choir rehearsal, how to run your sectional, how to have a little bit fun while you're doing it, and don't discount this experience for your students. So one of the really great things that I have noticed is that my students, because they are not singing with their section all the time, like yes, they can see them, but they can only hear themselves and me if I'm helping, they develop a lot of independent musicianship that they tend to not develop when they are singing together. So if you can make this exciting for your kids, and something that they really do want to do, it will pay dividends for you when you get back in person because they will have a stronger sense of musicianship and independence. So I know it's tough right now. Everything's on fire. And there are some possible benefits to this, but it's going to take you being more than a music teacher and making it fun and building community and making sure that, you know, your students are doing more than just music, because they're in it for the belonging, they're in it for their friends, they're in it to laugh, they're in it to have fun, and they're in it to make music too. Okay, so now I'm gonna have, which one doesn't belong and why? I have to plug my book a little bit because that is why we're here, partially. So if you want more tips like this, my book, Teaching Music Online, is available through F-Flat Books. There are tons of tips and tricks and templates and demonstrations. There's more for elementary, middle, high school, general music, performance ensembles, a little bit of music theory. And so if you are interested, I will put the link in the chat. Thank you to those of you who have said things about it. I very much appreciate that. I am going to also answer questions. So I see a couple people putting in questions in the chat. So, all right. So if you want more, you can read my book. And there's a lot of materials too I give you, so you can have everything from email templates, because gosh darn, the email takes up so much more time. I have templates for you that already have wording that you can use, all the way up to, you know, scheduling, different lesson plans, all of that. Don't forget, this is the good part too, that I'm also doing a Teaching Music Online Essentials giveaway. And so I have a bunch of my favorite things here that I'm giving away. So I do have a standing desk. I do have my second monitor. I do have a headset. My glasses are blue light glasses. And so all these things are not absolutely necessary to teach. You can teach without all these things, but they do make my life a lot easier. So if you have not entered yet, you're just going to go to bit.ly/online music giveaway. And if you were my students, I would have that typed out. Ooh, nope, that's spelled wrong. Hold on, sorry. I would have that typed out. Usually I have it in a document over here. But alas, there we go. So I can just easily copy and paste it. But you will get 8 bonus entries for attending today. There's like a little option where it says, if you attended PD. So you're going to put in all caps, virtual choir in there, and you get 8 bonus entries. Okay, so now that I have given you the giveaway and my book, all right, I'm gonna take questions. If you can't stay, or if you have more questions beyond today, like if you are like me and you're up at 3 a.m. and suddenly something hits you, please note that there are open office hours and Ask Me Anything on Friday if you would like to come to that. So I am going to go back now and answer all the questions that I have missed in the chat. You do not have to stick around if you don't want to, but if you want to hear answers to these questions, I will go for probably about 10 more minutes, just so you have an idea. I know East Coast people, it's getting kind of late. So I just want to be conscious of your time. So, okay, do you send kids a track to follow as they practice on their own? Yes, so in Smart Music, they have that kind of built in, which is really nice. When I do it in Soundtrap, I will record either a part, or I'll put in the MIDI part depending on the piece, and that way students can have that to practice as well, offline. Okay. Do I have any suggestions for younger students as far as having them submit recordings? Have a hard time recording when it involves too many steps. Oh, your district no longer allows Flipgrid. All right, so Barbara, I'm gonna write your question down because I don't know yet, but I'm gonna brainstorm a little bit on that. So I will think about that, but that is tough because I was gonna say Flipgrid, but if your district doesn't manage Flipgrid, let me think on that. Give me some think time. So you said 3rd to 5th. I am glad though that you were thinking about simplicity because the more clicks you add, the less likely it is that students are going to do it. So even having Smart Music and Soundtrap was almost a little bit too far because it requires them to have a login. And when you have to have a login outside of the school login, that adds another layer of complexity. And so the way that I get around that is I actually put students into individual breakout rooms. Sometimes we'll have, just like a day where we'll just have a work day. And so I'll actually go through each kid. And usually I find one or two kids that are like, I haven't completed any assignments because I can't log in. And so that is how I kind of address that there and how I ensure kids are doing that. But Barbara, I'm going to get back to you. Do I use a MIDI keyboard or a regular keyboard? So this is just a regular keyboard, although my favorite human Wesley does have a fancy MIDI keyboard over there. It's like his instruments room. So, but usually I just plug everything into Sibelius because that is the fastest for me. But if you do use a MIDI keyboard, totally works too. Do I have a list of these just for fun ideas? And do I have more? Yeah, so I will give you these slides. Look out for the email tomorrow. Do I have more? I do have more. I'm going to write that down too. So there are a couple that I do give in my book, but I do have even more than that. So yeah, I think it's just, bring your pet to sectional day is my favorite, to be honest. It is the absolute best. You cannot not smile seeing everyone's pets. Okay, do I teach in Zoom? Have I ever taught in Google Meets? Are breakout rooms difficult to set up? So I teach in 2 different platforms. One of them is not really worth talking about because it's very expensive and outdated and it's going away at my school. The only good thing about it is that it has timers built in, but that's about it. Secondly, I do teach in Zoom, and I hold all of my ensemble rehearsals in Zoom. Now, if you have Google Meet or if you have Microsoft, all of these features should be coming like very, very soon. I'm not as familiar with them, but honestly, as long as your kids can hear you, you can really have this kind of facilitated anywhere. I don't have any super pro tips in terms of Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams. I think the biggest thing is just make sure that your kids know what to do when they come in. Make sure that they can hear you and see you, and then make sure that they have a way to see themselves. That's really the couple of things. Breakout rooms are awesome. I don't know how to set up breakout rooms in Google Meet, but the first time you try breakout rooms, it's going to be really terrifying. You'll probably mess it up, and that's okay. I have done breakout rooms about 80 million times, and I even messed it up today, but it was just something to laugh at, right? Like, okay, wait a second. Michelle told me that I was going to be in a room with 2 people, and now I'm in a room with 17 people, and then you're all probably staring at each other. I'm like, oh, what's happening here? So I make mistakes all the time because I'm constantly trying new things. Like last night at the elementary session, I literally tried something that I had never done before, that I literally made up the day before. And most of the time it'll go pretty well. Some of the time it will completely fail. And you just laugh about it with your students and you say, okay, this is what we're going to do instead. Know that, if you're honest with your students and say, look, I'm expecting you to make mistakes during this process, and that's okay, but know that you should also expect me to make mistakes, and that's okay because we're all human. I find prefacing it with that, kids don't, I've never had a kid put in my feedback surveys, and I take feedback all the time. Some of it's anonymous, so they can be honest. I've never had a kid put, Mrs. Rose is completely incompetent at technology, or she ruined my class experience because we tried new things all the time, and some of them failed. As long as you're honest with kids, they'll be patient with you. Okay, what was the code for the PD session tonight? The PD session tonight was, what did I say? Virtual choir in all caps. Okay. Yes, there was one for last night too. So Jody, I'm gonna send that to you in a message. Okay. Ooh, all right, last little bit. I think I have just one more question. Suggestions, Screencastify or Loom if they use Chromebooks at their school. Are you asking me for suggestions, or is that a suggestion to someone? I wasn't quite sure. When do I take attendance? Have you ever heard of anything about the new music feature on Zoom? I just take attendance at the beginning. Um, and okay, so I kind of cheat a little bit because I have my kids enter in through the other platform and then they click on a link to enter Zoom, and the other platform counts the attendance for me. So I have it a little bit easier. However, um, use your students. If you have section leaders, have them take attendance and keep track of that. Like, you don't have to do it all. So I have an 8th grade TA who, because I have 300 8th graders, and still only split up into 3 classes, so it's still a lot. And so I use students all the time to do things. Like, if it's overwhelming you, try to give it to a student. Kids love to take attendance. Kids love to, help out in chat. My 8th grade TA, she monitors the chat, she answers questions, she does all these things that just allow me to teach. Zoom can also take attendance. All right, great. Mine, I think there's a way to set it up. Mine doesn't, but we don't need it to. I think that's what it is. Okay. I haven't really played around much with the new music feature on Zoom, quite honestly. So if the sound sounded really bad on your end tonight, I apologize. I haven't messed with it too much, quite honestly. I'm tired and everything's on fire right now. So I limit myself to the amount of new things that I take in. So I will do one thing at a time. And that is how I ensure that I don't burn out, because it is easy to burn out, especially when there are lots of new shiny things happening all the time. People are sending me these apps that are like, oh, look at this app that's premiering. It's specifically designed for like virtual choir or whatever. And so I will say that, yes, some of these can be used as tools, but don't try to do too many things. I keep it really, really simple, and my kids still have a great experience. All right, I think that's all the questions, and I think that's 9:15. All right, so if you have anything else, let me know. But if not, oh, thank you, whoever Mrs. Adam is. I know we're all teachers, so it's like Mrs., Mr., or Mix, or so and so. But thank you for that tutorial. So, all right, thank you all for coming. Thanks for hanging out. It's always great to spend time with other music teachers. Remember, you can do this, and your kids can have a good time this semester. Your kids can love virtual choir. Mine do, I promise. And so, thank you for coming. Hope you got some ideas, or at least had fun joining in on the Rose House, the musical, for tonight. All right. Thanks all. Have a good one. Bye. Deep breaths. We can do it together. Bye all.